Right now, your body actually contains enough sodium to survive for weeks.
Oh, yeah, easily.
But that salty snack you just ate, it is actively tricking your biology into a state of severe, localized dehydration.
It really is, and it's something almost no one thinks about.
Right. Because, I mean, we usually think the consequences of a high sodium or, a highly processed diet are pretty obvious.
Maybe you expect to feel a little puffy.
Exactly. Puffy, or maybe your rings feel a bit tight, and obviously, it's temporarily bumping up your blood pressure.
Sure, the standard trade-offs.
Right. We accept these as just the predictable trade-offs for a plate of heavily salted fries. But what if that exact same meal is secretly wreaking havoc on your most intimate biology?
And that is a profound connection that, honestly, it rarely ever makes it into mainstream health conversations.
Which is crazy to me.
It is. People tend to view their cardiovascular system, their digestive tract, and, their reproductive system as completely isolated silos.
Like they're in different rooms of a house or something.
Exactly. But they are operating on the exact same biological real estate.
Right.
So a disruption in your vascular system doesn't just stay in your blood vessels, it ripples out.
Yep.
It actively alters the microscopic ecosystems functioning inside your body right at this second.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Our mission for you today is to synthesize a stack of medical literature, nutrition research, and biological studies to really uncover this massive hidden chain reaction.
And it is a massive one.
It really is. We are going to explore how a high sodium or highly processed diet directly impacts your fundamental hydration, destabilizes your vaginal microbiome, and, well, sends shockwaves through your overall reproductive health.
But I think we should state very clearly right from the beginning that we are examining this from a purely mechanical perspective.
Yes, 100%.
This is a judgment-free space. We are not here to induce guilt over your lunch choices today.
No, not at all.
We simply want to map the biological pathway so you can actually connect the dots between what is on your dinner plate and the physical realities of your intimate health.
Exactly. It is about handing you the blueprint to your own biology. So to understand this dietary domino effect, we really have to start with a fundamental rule of human physiology.
The big one.
The big one, which is highlighted extensively in the clinical literature from Harvard Health and Hartwest Cardiology. It's basically a simple law of physics that dictates almost everything your body does.
Water always follows sodium.
Water always follows sodium.
Yep, that mechanism is the core driver of cellular osmosis. Wherever those sodium molecules go, water molecules will immediately rush across the cellular membrane to dilute them.
Because it's always trying to find a balance, right?
Oh, always. To put the scale of this into perspective, the average adult has roughly 250 grams of sodium naturally occurring in their body.
Okay, 250 grams.
Right. But functionally, to just keep your synapses firing and your muscles contracting, you only need an incredibly small amount to actually survive.
Like how small?
Like about 200 milligrams a day.
Wow. 200 milligrams. That is basically what you get from like a couple of shakes of a salt shaker.
Barely anything.
Meanwhile, a typical Western, highly processed diet can easily pack thousands of milligrams of sodium into a single meal.
Oh, easily. Sometimes in just one sitting.
So when you consume that massive excess of salt, it enters your digestive tract and gets absorbed straight into your bloodstream. And following that golden rule of biology we just talked about,
Water follows sodium.
right, so it drags a huge volume of water out of your surrounding tissues and directly into your blood vessels.
And the immediate consequence of that is a sudden, really dramatic increase in your overall blood volume.
Because now you have all this extra liquid.
Exactly. You suddenly have significantly more liquid pumping through the exact same enclosed vascular pipes.
Which has to go somewhere.
Right, so that physical expansion puts immense mechanical pressure on your arterial walls, and that manifests as high blood pressure.
Right, hypertension.
Yeah, and your kidneys, they sense this dangerous vascular stretch, and they just go into absolute overdrive.
Panic mode, basically.
Complete panic mode. They recognize the threat and frantically try to filter all that excess sodium out of your blood, mixing it with water to flush it out of your system as urine.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because this is the specific mechanism that, it always trips people up.
It's very counterintuitive.
It really is. If salt pulls water into your blood and it makes your blood volume expand to the point where you actually feel physically bloated, how can it simultaneously cause systemic dehydration?
Right, it sounds like a biological contradiction.
Exactly. I'm bloated, but I'm dehydrated. How does that work?
Well, exactly how the body manages these competing crises is detailed beautifully in the research from Vela Bioscience. They describe a concept called biological triage,
Triage, like in an emergency room.
exactly like an ER. When your internal fluid balance is thrown into total chaos by massive amounts of sodium, your body shifts into emergency management.
It has to make hard choices.
Exactly. It evaluates where water is absolutely critical for immediate survival. So your brain, your heart, your lungs, and of course those overworked kidneys.
Because, I mean, if your brain or your heart dries out, the game is over.
You're done.
Everything else is secondary.
Right. The body ruthlessly prioritizes those VIP organs. But here's the catch. While the kidneys are busy aggressively flushing water out to lower your blood pressure, the brain and heart still demand their full share of hydration.
So you have to get it from somewhere else.
The body literally has to steal that moisture. So it actively constricts blood flow and pulls water away from peripheral areas that it deems, non-essential for surviving the next 10 minutes.
Wow.
And the very first places to get their water supply cut off, your mucous membranes.
Oh, and this is where the systemic shock totally collides with your intimate biology.
Yeah.
Because the vagina is fundamentally a mucous membrane.
It is, yeah.
According to the research published in Frontiers, the defensive mucus layer in the cervicovaginal environment is composed of 95% water.
95%.
So when your body goes into that dehydration triage you mentioned, because of a high sodium or highly processed diet, this delicate tissue is basically robbed of its primary structural building block.
And the physical and microscopic fallout from that localized drought is severe.
I can imagine.
When mucosal tissue loses its moisture, the structural integrity of the cellular barrier itself begins to break down.
So it literally starts degrading.
Yeah, the tissue becomes dry, highly irritated, and incredibly prone to micro tears during physical intimacy.
Oh, it sounds awful.
It's very painful. But beyond just the physical discomfort, this drought actually collapses the environment required to sustain the local immune system.
The vaginal microbiome.
Exactly.
This is a highly specialized, incredibly sensitive ecosystem. Like, for a vagina to remain healthy, it requires a very specific, highly acidic pH balance.
Very acidic.
Yeah, usually sitting between, 3.8 and 4.5.
Right, in that range, yes.
And that acidity doesn't just happen by accident. It is actively manufactured by beneficial bacteria, primarily a species called Lactobacillus.
Lactobacillus acts as the foundational guardian of this entire space.
The good guy.
It is the ultimate good guy. And the biology of how it works is just brilliant. A well-hydrated, estrogen-rich vaginal lining constantly sheds epithelial cells. And those cells are packed with glycogen, which is basically a type of stored sugar.
Okay, so a food source.
Precisely. The lactobacillus feeds on that glycogen and ferments it into lactic acid.
Ah, hence the acidity.
Exactly. That constant production of lactic acid is what keeps the pH so low. It essentially burns out any invasive, harmful bacteria or yeast that try to take root.
Wow.
It is a totally elegant self-cleaning defense mechanism.
But it relies entirely on a well-hydrated mucosal lining to produce those plump, glycogen-rich cells in the first place.
Exactly. That's the weak link.
So when a high-sodium diet forces your body to steal water away from the mucous membranes, the cell turnover just stops.
The glycogen supply literally dries up.
And without glycogen, the lactobacillus starve.
They do. And as the beneficial bacteria die off, lactic acid production halts, and the vaginal pH inevitably begins to rise.
Becoming less acidic.
Right. It becomes higher, more alkaline. And that creates the perfect breeding ground for opportunistic pathogens. It completely compromises the body's natural defense line.
You know, I was thinking about this while digging through the sources, and the best way I can visualize it is like a garden experiencing a severe drought.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So the high-salt diet acts as the drought, completely drying out the soil and killing off all your delicate beneficial plants,
Yeah.
like lactobacillus.
Right.
But then the processed foods step in to make it even worse.
Oh, they always do.
Right. The research from Dr. Saqib Syed in Forces of Nature points out how diets high in saturated fats and refined sugars act like a highly toxic fertilizer.
A toxic fertilizer, wow.
Yeah, because it doesn't help the good plants, but it specifically feeds the worst weeds in the garden.
The clinical data backs up that toxic fertilizer analogy perfectly. When we look at the broader impact of a highly processed diet, it acts as an aggressive accelerant to the dehydration problem.
How so?
Well, the research demonstrates that diets high in saturated fats are linked to a 2 times higher risk of developing bacterial vaginosis, or BV.
Double the risk just from saturated fat.
Yes. Because it alters the lipid profiles in the body in a way that directly modulates the local immune response, it literally makes the tissue more susceptible to infection.
And then, of course, you factor in the high glycemic load of refined carbohydrates and sugars found in almost all highly processed foods.
Which is everywhere.
Right. These aren't just empty calories. They cause rapid volatile spikes in your blood sugar.
And those blood sugar spikes trigger a massive inflammatory cascade.
Big inflammation.
Yeah. Advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, they form when excess sugars bind to proteins in the bloodstream.
Okay. AGEs.
Right. And this systemic inflammation physically alters the way vaginal tissues metabolize whatever glycogen they have left.
Oh, man. So a high sodium or highly processed diet directly impacts this ecosystem on two fronts.
Exactly.
It causes the localized dehydration that kills your defensive bacteria while simultaneously feeding the exact chemical precursors that allow yeast and BV to thrive.
You are systematically dismantling your defenses while actively arming the invaders.
That is wild.
It is. But if we pull back and look at the bigger picture, the damage doesn't stop at tissue dryness or localized bacterial infections.
There's more.
Oh, yeah. This dietary disruption penetrates much deeper. It actively alters the fundamental reproductive hormones that govern fertility in both males and females.
Okay, so the endocrine disruption is where the systemic shock truly reveals itself.
Yes. The MDPI research on halophytic or high-salt diets provides a really sobering look at how sodium overloads crash the entire reproductive system.
Let's get into that.
Let's examine the male physiology first. When male animal models are placed on a high-salt diet, their reproductive endocrine feedback loop basically collapses.
Collapses entirely.
Pretty much. Blood tests reveal profound decreases in testosterone, alongside significant drops in luteinizing hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone, and leptin.
Okay, let's break those down because those aren't just random acronyms.
No, they're critical.
Right. Luteinizing hormone, or LH, is the signal from the brain that tells the testes to actually produce testosterone.
Exactly.
Follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH, is what triggers sperm production. And leptin is an energy-regulating hormone that tells the body it has enough resources to even attempt reproduction in the first place.
Right, it's the green light.
So when a high-sodium diet crashes those signals, the physical manifestations must be drastic.
They are. The anatomical changes observed in the studies reflect the absolute severity of that hormonal absence. The data shows physically smaller tests, a stark decrease in overall sperm concentration.
Though physically smaller.
Yes, actual tissue atrophy. And perhaps most concerning, massive increases in DNA fragmentation within the sperm that do actually survive the oxidative stress.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When researchers took sperm from these high-salt diet models and tested them in controlled in vitro fertilization settings, the hatching rates of the resulting embryos plummeted by 70%.
70%. That is a catastrophic drop in viability just from altering salt intake.
Just from salt.
And the physiological impact on females was equally alarming, right?
Very much so.
The high salinity actually suppressed the recruitment of ovarian follicles. It actively decreased cell proliferation and triggered apoptosis, which is programmed cell death in granulosa cells.
Which are so important.
Right. Granulosa cells are the vital nurse cells that surround and feed the oocyte, the egg, as it develops. Without them, the egg literally cannot mature.
Exactly. Furthermore, the high-sodium diet increased inflammatory markers within the placenta during pregnancy.
So it continues even after conception.
Yes, demonstrating that the hostile environment persists through every stage of the reproductive process, from early follicle development all the way to late-stage placental health. The sodium overload is just throwing a wrench into the delicate hormonal machinery.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to play the skeptic for just a moment.
Please do.
We are talking about highly controlled studies done on sheep and mice-fed extreme halophytic diets. Are we absolutely certain this translates to human biology?
It's a fair question.
I mean, it feels very easy for someone listening to dismiss a study on a sheep and say, well, my biology is totally different, so my salty fast food order isn't literally causing cellular death in my ovaries.
And it is a vital distinction to make. Questioning the leap from animal models to human application is always necessary in science.
Right.
However, in the field of reproductive etiology, these specific animal models are considered the gold standard.
Really?
Yes. Mammalian reproductive systems share deeply conserved biological pathways. While human dietary habits obviously differ from sheep, the fundamental mechanisms buckling under the pressure of a high-sodium diet, specifically cellular osmosis and the renin-angiotensin system, or RAS, are virtually identical.
Okay, the renin-angiotensin system.
Hmm.
That is the complex hormone system that regulates our blood pressure and fluid balance, right?
Exactly.
The very thing that goes haywire when the kidneys try to flush out the salt.
Precisely how it works is fascinating. We typically think of the RAS as a systemic loop operating between the kidneys, lungs, and the cardiovascular system.
Right, the big organs.
But humans also possess highly active, localized renin-angiotensin systems directly within the reproductive tract.
Oh. Inside the testes and the ovaries.
Yes, inside the testes and the ovaries. So when you overload a mammalian body with a massive influx of salt, the localized RAS in the reproductive organs has to adapt to the vascular pressure too.
Oh, I see where this is going.
That adaptation causes severe vascular constriction, literally starving the delicate ovarian and testicular tissues of oxygen and nutrients. And that is what results in the oxidative stress and cellular death we see in the data.
Wow.
The underlying mechanism is a massive, glowing red flag for the high-salt, highly processed Western diet.
So the threat is incredibly real. The biological chain reaction goes from a processed salty snack to a massive spike in blood volume to emergency cellular dehydration, resulting in a mucosal drought, microbiome collapse, and finally severe hormonal suppression.
It sounds like a horror movie.
It sounds like an unstoppable biological avalanche. But let's look at the dietary defense. If the root cause is a lack of localized moisture, instinct says the fix is simple. Just drink a gallon of tap water.
Oh, if only it were that simple. The clinical reality of rehydration is much more complex than simply chugging plain water.
Because of the electrolytes.
Exactly. The research from Normalite, alongside the MDPI pediatric hydration studies, highlights a crucial physiological distinction between ingesting water and actually hydrating your cells.
Right, ingestion versus hydration.
If your cellular mineral balance is completely dysregulated by a massive influx of sodium, flooding your digestive system with plain water just doesn't solve the problem. The kidneys, which are already in panic mode trying to lower your blood pressure, will simply filter that plain water straight into your bladder.
You are just forcing yourself to run to the bathroom every 20 minutes, but the water isn't actually crossing the cellular membrane to reach the tissues that are suffocating from the triage.
Precisely. To actively push water back into those depleted mucosal environments, you have to engage the body's cellular transport mechanisms.
How do you do that?
True hydration requires a very specific, appropriate balance of electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and chloride to activate the pumps that pull water across the intestinal wall.
Okay.
And that's what distributes it effectively to the triage-depleted areas like the vaginal mucosa and the reproductive organs.
So it's about the biological quality of the hydration, which really brings us to the actual food prescription.
Yes, the good stuff.
The sources from Nourish, Healthline, and Positive Pause lay out a phenomenal, actionable defense strategy using specific whole foods to rebuild this internal ecosystem.
It's very empowering.
It is. It is not just about aggressively avoiding salt. It's about actively adding structural support to your plate.
The targeted additions to the diet are meant to reverse the exact mechanisms we just mapped out.
Right.
They stabilize the erratic blood sugar, they provide the necessary intracellular hydration, and they directly feed the collapsed microbiome.
Let's start with sweet potatoes. These are an incredible tool because they are very low on the glycemic index.
So no big spikes.
Exactly. They release energy slowly, meaning they don't cause the massive blood sugar spikes that create systemic inflammation and feed bad bacteria.
Perfect.
Beyond that, they are dense in dietary fiber and heavily packed with vitamin A, which clinical research shows is vital for strengthening the structural integrity of the uterine and vaginal walls.
Such a great food. Alongside complex carbohydrates, introducing avocados and healthy fats is absolutely critical.
I love avocados.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
But medically, avocados are remarkably rich in potassium and vitamin B6.
And potassium is the key, right?
Yes. Potassium is the crucial intracellular electrolyte that counterbalances the extracellular sodium. It actively helps to pull water back into the dehydrated cells.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Furthermore, these specific healthy fats have a documented direct positive effect on natural mucosal lubrication and overall libido.
Win-win. Next up on the defense list, probiotics. But the sources are incredibly specific here. The strains actually matter.
Very much so.
You can't just eat a random bowl of fermented cabbage and expect it to magically fix a complex vaginal imbalance. You have to actively reseed the environment.
Right.
You want to look for yogurts or supplements with live, active cultures that specifically contain lactobacillus strains, because those are the exact specific bacteria needed to restart lactic acid production, lower the pH, and fortify the microbiome against bacterial vaginosis.
Spot on. Finally, we must look at minimally processed soy products.
Okay, soy.
This intervention is particularly relevant for listeners who might be experiencing menopausal dryness.
Because of the estrogen drop.
Exactly. As natural estrogen levels drop with age, the mucosal lining naturally thins out and loses its ability to store glycogen.
Right, we talked about glycogen earlier.
So minimally processed soy foods like organic edamame, tofu, and tempeh, they contain powerful plant-based compounds called phytoestrogens, specifically isoflavones.
Phytoestrogens.
Yeah. These compounds are structurally similar enough to human estrogen that they actually bind to receptors in the body, helping to maintain the thickness, elasticity, and hydration of the vaginal lining without synthetic hormones.
That is fascinating. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If you are standing in your kitchen looking at your pantry, what is the ultimate takeaway?
It's a good question.
Do you have to live a monk-like existence and swear off every single grain of salt forever to protect your intimate health?
No, absolute restriction is neither healthy nor sustainable. As we established at the very beginning, your cellular biology requires sodium to actually function.
You die without it.
Right. True health is about recognizing the incredible power of your biological inputs.
I like that phrase.
Swapping heavily processed, hyper-salted, refined foods for whole, fiber-rich, and deeply hydrating alternatives is not a dietary punishment.
No, not at all.
It is a highly effective daily investment in your physical comfort, the defense of your microbiome, and the long-term viability of your reproductive health.
It fundamentally changes the way you look at a simple meal. We've gone on quite the journey today.
We really have.
We started with the deceptive simplicity of a salty snack. We watched as the body prioritized the heart and brain while literally draining the mucous membranes, saw how that microscopic drought triggered a complete collapse of the lactobacillus microbiome, and traced those systemic shock waves all the way to diminished male and female fertility and altered hormones.
It's a massive chain reaction.
It is. You are never just feeding your stomach. You are feeding, hydrating, and defending a delicate, highly responsive mucosal ecosystem.
And, you know, we have been conditioned for generations to view intimacy, fertility, and reproductive health as totally isolated phenomena.
Oh, absolutely.
We view them as things governed purely by our genetics, our chronological age, or just, mysterious, untouchable hormonal fluctuations.
Things we can't control.
Exactly. But the clinical literature reveals a much more empowering reality. One of the most powerful, immediate levers of control you have over your reproductive destiny, your microbiome, and your daily intimate comfort is simply the hydration and mineral balance of the food on your plate.
It is a brilliant reminder to listen closely to what your body is trying to tell you. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you take this knowledge, apply it to your own ecosystem, and use it to fuel a deeply hydrated, healthier day. See you next time.